What is a widely believed fact about the US that is actually incorrect? Paul Revere didn't even do that much of the ride. He was just glorified in the Longfellow poem, probably because his name was easier to rhyme than Israel Bissell. That the sound they use for a bald eagle is the cry of a red-tailed hawk. An eagle actually has an unpleasant cackle. The US president has full control of the government and makes and passes all our laws. I've had to explain to a worrying amount of people that this is false. Rosa Parks was a little old black lady who just happened to want to keep her seat on a bus. One can debate why the history taught is not accurate. But the truth is, Rosa Parks was a leader of the civil rights movement which actively and strategically and precisely planned a protest to occur on that bus, designed it to get national change to happen. Read your local jaywalking laws. So many people think that merely walking in the road is illegal when what is actually illegal is much more narrowly defined. Usually there is a necessary element of impeding motor vehicles. But the cops often don't know either. Usually what happens is that the cop unknowingly gives out a bogus ticket, and the offender doesn't know it's bogus either, and so they just pay it. Basically everything about Thanksgiving and the Plymouth Colony. The Plymouth Rock is actually just a rock. The passengers on the Mayflower didn't step on it or have much to do with it at all besides being in the same general vicinity. There was actually no mention of the rock until over 100 years later. A whole tale was fabricated around it. Some people believe George Washington was elected in 1776. Bro wasn't even in office till 1789 after the ratification of the Constitution. Technically there were multiple presidents of the Continental Congress before him. People like to think of the US as a monolith, while states such as Massachusetts have gun violence rates that rival most Canadian provinces, and states like Colorado have obesity rates comparable to notably fat nations such as Sweden, Finland, and Belgium. There are regions where the American stereotypes can be found in abundance, but it's a much more diverse country than most people realize. It's not really true that Americans as a whole are fat and obsessed with guns. That Chicago is a mob and or gang-infested shattered dystopia. I'm not saying we don't have our problems, but aside from a few areas, the city is beautiful, welcoming, and entertaining. Oh, but our major sports teams are a crime against humanity. Even further correction, he would have never said the British are coming, because at this point the conflict was not really yet about independence, only lowering taxation. He technically himself was British. It would be more in the lines of the regulars are coming. That we are more racist than anyone else. Listen to Western Europeans talk about gypsies, Roma, whatever they call them. It's like Alabama 1967 for US blacks. That American has a general crime problem or that crime is raising. The US crime rate is at a 60-year low. As in the lowest crime rate since the Justice Department started to track most crimes. Also one from me being Japanese having been to the USA a few times. Americans think that Americans have a bad reputation overseas. America has some issue that people take with the nation's actions. But Americans are as people considered to be some of the friendliest people you can ever meet. The first woman to run for president is Hillary Clinton and the first black man to run is Barack Obama. In truth, Victoria Woodhull and Frederick Douglass ran together in 1872. That we are more racist than other places. Source lived many other places. That you can simply walk into a store and buy a firearm no questions asked. It's more like buying a car or getting a loan. You have to fill out paperwork about where you live and what you do for a living and all your contact information. Then they run you through a system where they check for any criminal history and mental health history. War of the Worlds didn't cause a mass panic. People just believed that it did because newspapers used it as an excuse to talk shit about radio broadcasts as they had a huge rivalry. Also, Thomas Edison wasn't a genius who invented the light bulb, he just knew how to rip off other people and take credit for their work. Americans don't travel much. A fact held by Europeans who travel from France to Spain and Italy. In actuality, Americans go from NYC to California and Texas, which is akin to a Briton going to Syria, in terms of distance and population traversed.